But basically, they came from a planet originally. Where they live now is not where they started. They originated on a planet that was about 4 times the size of Earth, but the mass of it was lower by quite a bit because it was not like it wasn't as solid as Earth. It was more like halfway between Earth and Jupiter as far as like gaseous versus solid. And so the gravity was less than even our moon. So they grew very tall. They were 9 to 10 feet tall, uh, bluish gray skin, like slick looking skin. They weren't furry. They weren't. There was no hair at all anywhere on them. But had this bluish gray skin, kind of dark colored. It wasn't like royal blue. It was more like a midnight bluish gray. And they had a really large head, but with these eyes that were the eyes are what really drew me in right off the bat when I looked at them. And it's because they had this kind of look like they're evaluating you, but in a kind way, like they say they can see everything about you just from looking at you.
Welcome to Souls on Tap. I'm Julianne Thon. Today's episode begs the questions: what if death isn't an ending, but a remembering? What if the moment you leave your body, you don't disappear, but you expand? Today's guest crossed that threshold and came back with extraordinary visions of the universe, other beings, and the true nature of our energy body. He saw what happens when we die and what may be waiting for humanity next. Welcome to the podcast, Andrew.
Thank you very much for having me, Julianne. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Getting started, can you take us to the moment just before your near-death experience actually began? What was happening in your life, both externally and internally?
Okay, so first of all, I had two experiences. One at 7, the other at 14. For the first one, I was right in between. I was in a gifted class for a couple of years before starting first grade. So I was in that transition period between that class and going to a public school. Um, and so this happened during the summer of 1978. And what happened was a virus that affected my hometown and the area around us. It was only affecting kids under the age of 16, and there was dozens of them. So it was like as far as I know, they never actually identified the virus. If they did, it was after we had it. But it had a lot of effects like mononucleosis, like chronic fatigue, like severe lethargy, um, uh, high temperatures, unable to keep food down. The worst cases involve septicemia and septic shock, where organs were shutting down, people were in comas, so a lot of really serious consequences. Internally, I had never had a concept of death at that point. In fact, the first person in my life who died was a friend of mine who died when I was 12 due to a drunk driver. I lost another friend when I was 18, and my first family member death was when I turned 19, the year I graduated from high school. So at that point in my life, at 7, I had never had anybody die. I had never died. I had never even been close to it. I thought it was like most kids, and I thought it was invulnerable. Um, like nothing can touch me. I can, leap off tall buildings with a single bound. So, um, but yeah, as far as like, I know a lot of people like to ask about like what my belief system was. I was still kind of forming it at that point. Um, I, I've never been a religious person per se, but I've always been like right in the middle of spiritual. And the I guess the difference is it's more of a for me it's more of a personal journey, more of a I want to be the best person I can be rather than study this, study that, memorize this passage. I was never that kind of person.
Sounds like you were kind of ahead of the game then.
In a way, I mean, it just I hated like rote learning, like where you just memorize this thing, read this page, read page 3 to 10, and write this. I was never good at that, and I hated that way of learning, and I've never thought it was a good way for kids to learn. Still don't. I preferred more of a free method where you learn what the child is interested in and pursue that. Because if you're interested in something, you tend to be passionate about it and you do better in things that you're interested in. So to me, it just made sense. That's why I love that gifted class because that's the way that class ran. And going from that to first grade was a huge switch for me because I went from like a free learning kind of environment to a more standard, strict rote learning. And I didn't particularly like that. Um, so anyway, when this virus hit, um, it caught my brother first. His was a minor version. He was went to the hospital and was back home in 48 hours. With him, it was kind of like flu-like symptoms, more like kind of like COVID has been for some people. And then after he came home, 2 days later, I got it.
Mm.
And unfortunately, mine was the worst version. I ended up in the hospital, and my temperature within, I think, the first 24 hours shot up to 105. And I think it topped out at 107 at my worst
Wow.
point,
Wow. And
which
you were
basically means
still
your
at
brain is
home?
boiling in your skull.
You were still at home at that point, or were you in the hospital?
Oh no, I was in the hospital when that happened. Yeah, like when I went to the hospital, I was probably 101. I was dehydrated. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Or no, I was sleeping too much. I couldn't eat. Couldn't keep anything
Right,
down.
right.
And they'd already been through it with my brother, so they brought me to the emergency room, and they told my parents that he has the same thing his brother had, but his is worse. So we need to treat it right away. And they put me in a bed. And they actually, at that time, they thing that they tend to put kids in for isolation was what they call an oxygen tent, which is like big old drape thing that hangs over from your waist up in the bed and keeps your air flow isolated. So it's almost pure oxygen,
Sure. Yeah, I've seen those.
and so that way, and anybody who came to the room had to wear like full gown mask, face mask, everything else,
Right.
and they weren't allowed to. The only people allowed to touch me were the doctors and nurses. Like my family couldn't touch me.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a very social person, very outgoing person, to be isolated like that was affected me psychologically, even after this event was over with. Um, but within I think less than 3 days, I was in a coma, and the coma lasted 5 days. And like I said, the temperature jumped up to 105, then 107 very quickly. I was starting to experience the septic shock symptoms, which means all my organs started shutting down one after another, very,
Yeah.
very fast. And it got to the point where the only ones left were my heart, lungs, and brain. And
Mm.
so that's their basic level of functionality at that point. Um, and then within an hour on day five, the end of day five, my heart and lungs shut down first, and that set off the alarms. Code Blue team came running in. My grandmother was the one who stayed with me because my parents were like my mom was home watching my brother. My dad was working, so he had to pay the bills, and so they couldn't stay with me. So
Sure.
my grandmother came, and she was shuffled out of the room into the hallway, and the code blue team worked on me. So um, as soon as the my heart and lungs shut down, right behind them, my brain shut down. And I mean, they hooked up monitors and everything, pets like a PET scan monitor, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
uh, probes on my head, and everything flatlined.
Wow.
And so at that point, I was clinically dead, gone. There's nothing left. And immediately upon flatlining, I found myself like it was an instant move, like in the back corner of the hospital room, and I was up in the air in the back corner, like where the TV was up on the wall. I was next to that, and there was no transition. It wasn't like I moved there. It was like 1 minute, 1 second I'm in the bed, next second I'm up there. And so for me, I felt like from my perspective, being 7 year old, you don't have any concept of what's going on. Uh, I always thought that whatever part of me is thinking, whatever part of me is aware, that is me. And so I'm up there. So I didn't know who the person in the bed was. I was sure it wasn't me.
So
And
you
I
you
had no
you
idea.
didn't recognize yourself then,
No,
lying there. You didn't.
I didn't recognize because I never seen myself really. I mean, I saw myself in the mirror, but it wasn't that you
Yeah.
don't see yourself from that outside perspective, that
Right.
third person perspective.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it was like seeing a stranger, and I knew that I'd been in pain beforehand. I didn't even really think about it, but I remember that afterwards thinking like, I wasn't really in pain at that point, and I didn't understand why. But I I knew that this part I wasn't sure how I was floating in the air, but I was sure that that part up there was me and not the part in the bed. And it wasn't until a doctor who was working on me said, "Come on, Andy, come on back, stay with us." And that's when I realized that was me that he was talking to, and that was me in the
Oh,
bed.
oh gosh.
So that's when I started really freaking out. Um,
So when you say
you know,
freaking out, were you experiencing some fear?
oh, I was definitely afraid. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, if I'd been in a body, I would have been having a panic attack. I'll put it that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what was going on. Like I went from, okay, well, how am I floating in the air to how am I in two places at once, and
Right.
what's happening to me? Like I said, I have no concept of death. So what's going on? And it was at that moment I heard this, what I describe as a sing-songy voice in my head. It was a deep, melodic, tony voice, and it was very calming. And I found out later that this was my guide, and he told me that you've crossed over, but you're okay. You're fine. You're not gonna, there's nothing can harm you where you are now. And that kind of immediately calmed me down. And I didn't, I couldn't see the owner of the voice. I can only hear it, but I heard it in my head. It wasn't like next to me or across the room. It was like, it was like my own voice. Like when you think inside your head, it was kind of like that, but it was somebody else's voice. It wasn't mine. And as soon as I realized that, like I remember I saw the head doctor who was standing at the foot of the bed, giving orders to everybody. I remember seeing that he had a bald spot on the back of his head, and he combed over from left to right.
That's an
And
interesting detail.
and it came even more interesting later on because when I came back, just as a quick tidbit, I remember asking the nurse, who was the doctor with the bald spot, and because I said because he wasn't one of the ones I was used to seeing at that point,
Mm-hmm.
and she asked for me to describe him, and I said he has a bald spot, and I just kind of mimed combing over. And he said, "Oh, that must be Doctor. I think it was like Johnson or Johansson, something like that." and she went and got him, and she said, "Is this him?" And I was looking at him like I'm looking at you, and I don't know. Can you bend over? And he thought that was kind of a strange request, so he bent over, and I saw the bald spot in the coma. I said, "Yep, that's you." He said, When did you see me?" I said, "I was up there," and I pointed towards the television, and I said, "I saw the bald spot from up there," because on my position in the bed, I couldn't see
Sure, of
this bald
course.
spot. He never bent over. He wasn't, in a position where I could see that.
So what was his
So
reaction when you said that?
he was shocked, to put it mildly. Um, the nurse about had a fit. This is the time you're talking about the 70s. Near-death experiences weren't commonly talked about. There wasn't a
Right,
lot of people who knew about them,
right.
and so the nurse had no idea what was going on. Um, but she was freaking out. I remember later on, one of the doctors said she actually asked to be transferred to a different unit for until I went home because she was afraid of me at 7 years old, which
Isn't
I thought was weird.
that is interesting? But if you consider the times
Yeah,
and what was going on then, you're absolutely right. Near death experiences. I don't think Andrew Weiss's are. I don't think his book had even Dr. Weiss, and I hope I have his name right, his first name, but I don't think his book had even come out yet. I
yeah.
think
There was one like in the mid 70s. It wasn't like it just wasn't. We didn't have the internet or Google or things like that. So unless you happened to pick up a book that had something about near-death experiences in
and
it,
there weren't that many at that time,
yeah,
right?
exactly. There
Yeah,
was like two.
yeah.
You know.
And if you take a religious upbringing and you throw that in there as well, you've got a
Mm,
recipe for fear.
exactly. And I actually experienced that firsthand later on because my parents, despite my mother's lack of religious belief, my father had a bit of belief, but they wanted both of us, myself and my brother, to have an upbringing in the church so that we could see kind of all sides of life. And then when we were old enough, make our own decision as far
Mhm.
as which way we wanted to go. So I remember trying to tell, like, we had this youth minister named Julia, who I told about this one time in a private conversation, and I couldn't get 3 words out before she basically shut me down. And this is blasphemy. You can't say this. You can't tell anybody this. If you mention this to anybody else, you're going to hell. And I mean, it was this absolute just cut off from. And it wasn't just her. It was everybody that I ran across. My family didn't believe me. My friends didn't believe me. Church people, uh, teachers at school, the counselor, like nobody. The only person who did was my grandmother, the one who was actually there. So
So how did that
I
affect you?
spent I spent 20 years not sure what it like. I knew in the depth of me that what I saw was real. I had no doubt that it was real, but I couldn't really drive the two sides of it because like I know this is real, but I can't prove it. So how do I talk to people who don't even want to listen, who automatically shut me down
Right,
before I can get a word out edgewise?
right.
And it wasn't until actually the 90s when I actually went out. I went on the road quite a bit for the next 22 years, starting in 1994, to talk to different groups. Like some were local, just like little 6 or 12 person groups. Other times it was panel discussions where I was like part of a panel of people um, who were talking about death or the afterlife or whatever, and meeting people who came up to me after the shows or after the discussions, and sometimes hearing them talk about their experiences. It's the first time I didn't feel alone
Sure.
because I felt completely isolated. Even though my grandmother believed me and I can talk to her, I felt cut off, alone, isolated.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like, that, like, what happened to me and why doesn't anybody believe this? And as I got older, I realized that, well, they believe what they see. And since they couldn't see this, yeah, it's like
Right.
the way we are about mental
To,
disability versus physical disability. You get more, you get more sympathy for a broken finger than you do for having a severe mental disability.
right.
So,
Absolutely. So you're back in. So getting back to your experience. So you popped out of your body. You're up on this corner of the ceiling, and you're watching everything that's going on. And then what happened next?
so then the voice came back again and said that there's some things that we need to do, some stuff you need to go through, and so you need to come with us. And immediately I felt pulled backwards through the corner of the ceiling, through the roof. And I could see going through the materials of the ceiling and roof. I could see them from the inside as I was going through them. It was a really freaky experience. And then I was outside the hospital, but I wasn't cold, I wasn't hot. I couldn't feel temperature. Um, but I remember as I was going, it was like being lifted up into the air at a very high speed, and but I could still focus on things. Like I remember thinking, "Where's my house? I want to see where's my house," and
Mm,
immediately my vision zoomed right
zoomed
in
in
to
on
where my
that.
house was. I remember the ski area that I used to go ski, where I learned to ski at, was like 10 minutes away from my house. I remember I could see that from where I was. And but the every time it was like going into an automatic zoom, but it was the clarity of it that
Wow.
really stuck out. Like I could see it in the greatest, it was like standing right there and seeing the every little tiny detail. And it was better than any, like there's no, I've had 20/20 vision my whole life. I still do. I've never seen anything with the clarity I saw in that near death
Wow.
experience.
So
So
did you happen to notice a cord you were tethered to, or something that was attached to you?
I felt like there's something, I didn't see it, but I felt it. Like there was something that was connecting me to the body still, but it felt like it could stretch forever. Like
Mm,
there was no limit to it.
mm,
Um, so it wasn't like, an umbilical cord where, okay, it only goes this far and then boop, it pops out.
sure.
Um, so it was more like this uh, infinite string that you just keep going and going and going, but I could always feel it.
Hmm.
And I found out later from my guide that where we first connect is in the solar plexus area.
Mm,
And so that's where our energy being first makes the connection, and then it connects to everything else, all the extremities, your brain, your heart, your lungs, everything inside. From that, it's like that central point. So that's the first thing to hook up, and the last thing to go when you die is that connection to the solar plexus. And that's what we call, like, if you're into chakras, that's like the heart chakra. It's that same area. Um, but anyway, so I remember I blacked out briefly, not like long period of time, just like a half second. Everything went black, and then all of a sudden I was somewhere else, and there was no transition, no time passage. I was just like going up in the air, everything's really cool, and all of a sudden I'm somewhere else.
mm,
And that's how a lot of things were. Like I said, the instant pop out of my body, the instant pop to this other place. It was instantaneous. There was no passage of time, no distance crossed. It was just you're here, then you're there in the blink of an eye. And this place I was in was like it felt like a room, but it was made out of this bluish green energy. And the only thing I've seen that comes close to looking like it, if anybody has seen the newer Tron movie, or not the one that just came out, but the one that came out 2 years ago. There was this they used this kind of translucent bluish green energy for some of the things in this computer world. And it was very much like that, where the energy was malleable. You could I could like I if I could reach out for it, it had like a membrane between the energy and me, where I could feel it pushing back against me, but it would give a little bit, so it wasn't solid like a block of wood or something like that. And this whole room was made out of it: the floor, the ceiling, the walls, the door, everything. And I found out later. I started referring to it by the similar Harry Potter name called the Room of Requirement. In
Right.
the if you remember, if you've ever seen the books or the movies, there's a particular room where it reads the people trying to use it, and then creates what they need as long as they need it, and then reverts to like a neutral state until the next person comes along that needs something. And that's how this is. It's all, I call it potential energy, and I'm not sure if that's a particularly scientific definition per se, but that's how it felt, where it was always the potential to create something.
Mm.
And whenever a being came along who needed a room to acclimate somebody to the other side, or needed pods for a life review, whatever you needed, this energy would create instantaneously. And this energy is everywhere on the other side. There's nowhere it's not. So every time, no matter where you are, if you want to make something, you want to go somewhere, like I created a whole little pocket universe instinctually, based on a place that I'd lived in a previous lifetime in Switzerland. And I created that just the same way, out of this energy, the same way they created this room with the bed. So
So you were incarnate during your incarnation on Earth. You were not aware that you had a past life, certainly having nothing to do with Switzerland. But you're
no,
saying once you died and now you're in that room, suddenly you were able to see and
well, not
know.
not not in that room. I saw it later on. I was like, I knew instantly that there was more to life than this particular incarnation, but I was not aware of the specifics of it.
Sure.
It wasn't until my second near death experience I had a separate life review, that where I was shown my previous three lifetimes that were Earth based, and that's when I saw the one in Switzerland along with two others.
Okay. So getting back to your first one, so you're in this room. What happens
Hmm.
next?
So the room is just basically to allow you to acclimate, to ask questions. And I noticed that, although like my guide was there, and once I crossed over to the other side, I could see him now. So like before, all I heard was the voice. Now I could hear the voice and see him. And
See who,
I found out later that once you have to cross the veil to be able to see their energy based form.
so this was your guide you're
Yes.
talking about? Okay.
Yes, my guide, and there's two other beings that were like, and I will say this: my guide is not human. He's from a different planet, and
That's exciting.
uh, yeah, that was. I mean, I'd always, even as a kid, I knew there was other life out there. I always felt like there was, and I didn't realize it was because I knew that there was. Um,
So what did
like
he look
I
like?
found out. Uh, his particular species, that the last one that he incarnated with, is actually from a planet almost directly across the galaxy from where we are. So we can't see it because of the massive gas and dust and light that's in the center of the galaxy. Um, but basically, they came from a planet originally. Where they live now is not where they started. They originated on a planet that was about four times the size of Earth, but the mass of it was lower by quite a bit, because it was not like, it wasn't as solid as Earth. It was more like halfway between Earth and Jupiter as far as like gaseous versus solid. And so the gravity was less than even our moon. So they grew very tall. They were 9 to 10 feet tall, uh, bluish gray skin, like slick looking skin. They weren't furry. There was no hair at all anywhere on them, but had this bluish gray skin, kind of dark colored. It wasn't like royal blue. It was more like a midnight bluish gray. And they had a really large head, but with these eyes that were the eyes are what really drew me in right off the bat when I looked at them. And it's because they had this kind of look like they're evaluating you, but in a kind way, like they say they can see everything about you just from looking at you. And I remember feeling seen by him
Wow.
immediately right off the bat, and I felt a very strong connection to him, and I still
Mm.
do. He and I are like we become like brothers. Um, I I actually hear from him quite a lot, especially this year. I've heard from him almost every day.
That's great. Yeah, I'll
So
bet with everything that's going
he's
on. Huh?
amazing. He's helped me a lot the last, especially last year or so.
So you weren't afraid of him
But
at all. You just did he have
oh
a name?
no,
Did he have a
I
name of some?
he tried to tell me his name. The problem is, in order to say words and names in their language, you need body parts that we don't have.
Oh,
It's like
okay.
trying to make bird sounds, like
Hmm.
clicks and whirs and kind of weird sounds. So he tried to say it, and I tried to say it in my head. I was trying to say it like I would say it normally as a human, but I couldn't vocalize it. So actually, one of the people in my near death experience group named Barbara Gale, who's a medium, she actually saw him in a Zoom meeting, standing next to me, and she said that he tried to tell her his name, and she said it sounded a little bit like Millie for some reason, and I guess it does in a way. Their language when you hear it, it sounds like a mix of sounds, but with a romantic language like Italian or French.
Huh. That's interesting. It's interesting you
It's
picked that
very
up.
melodic and calming.
So there you are, and he is standing before you now, and you
Yeah.
very much feel seen and probably loved also. So
Oh,
you
very
felt
much.
safe. And then what
Yeah.
happened?
I immediately, of course, he could sense the questions in me, and he was answering them before I even, I was automatically trying to vocalize, but didn't realize that I didn't have a body. So no mouth, no tongue, no vocal cords, no air to pass over anything. So I couldn't speak. And so it took me a second to realize that the reason he was talking in my head is that's how everyone there communicates, is telepathically.
Mhm.
So I was thinking questions in my head, and he was answering them before I asked them. And one of them was like, what happened to me? Where am I?" And he explained that I was in a realm that is directly connected to the one you just came from, but you're not able to see it because of the limitations of your human body, basically. And um, so he was just explaining, like, you're having what's called he didn't call it a near death experience. He called it a transition,
Mhm.
and said, you're experiencing a transition, but it's temporary. You will eventually return home. It's not you're just coming here to see and do some certain things. And I found out later that this was, and the near death experiences, they're always planned by the beings themselves and usually by their guide or some other being working with them. So we may not remember that when we're having it, but I found out from him later that this is the case with every being who has a near death experience, that they're planned for a reason. And
Right.
usually it's to kind of guide them back on their life path, or to explain to them, like maybe you've just been kind of wandering lost, and you have a reason that you came here, and you're not doing that reason, you're not living that reason, and so it's to get you started on your path. And usually they try to do it early for most beings, unless they just need to be guided back towards their path. If they're trying to get you started, they do it earlier. That's why, like, a lot of kids have near-death experiences, is to get them started on their path rather than guiding them back to it.
Sooner than later, right?
Yeah, like you want to get them. Uh, so you want to put them on their path
Sure.
early so that you can accomplish what you came here to do. But after I asked several questions, he once he felt like I was acclimated and I was comfortable being where I was, and I had accepted the fact that I was dead, even though I didn't know what that meant yet. I at least had a concept I was not where I had been. I was not technically alive, but in a way, I was more alive than I had been. Um, like in this realm, the one thing I remember feeling right off the bat was freedom. Like in a body, because every time I went, both times I went back to a body, it felt like being stuffed into a little tiny box full of pain prods, and
Wow.
it was the worst feeling. That's why no, like nobody who has a near death experience wants to come back, and a lot of us don't want to stay even when we do. So it's very, very difficult. You have to really be strong in will to come back from that and want to go on and do stuff without immediately wanting to go back where you just were.
Right.
I mean, it's like I describe it like if you see, imagine seeing every place that you've ever loved going to, every place you've always wanted to go to, everything you've seen pictures of. Imagine spending a long period of time doing that and living that life, and then all of a sudden somebody stuffs you in that box full of pain prods.
Oh
You're
gosh.
cramped in this little tiny box, and they dump you in the worst, nastiest sewer on earth. That's what
Mm.
it's like coming back. So it's a miserable experience. Um, But anyway, so once he felt like I was acclimated, he said there's another experience you need to go through, and it's called a life review. And he gave me a basic overview of what that was. And it basically was, you're gonna see what you have done so far in this life. And of course, at 7, you haven't done much. But it's not so much watching it like a movie. What
Hmm.
you're doing is you're experiencing it both from the perspective you saw and felt it from, but also um, the perspective and feeling of the person you did it to. So I'll give you a quick example. My cousin, um, he and I used to hang out a lot as kids, and he had this particular Matchbox car, which I was not aware his father had given him, and it was the same make, model, and color as the car that he drove for real. So my cousin cherished that, and I saw it as just, oh, cool, another, that's a really cool looking car. It was like I don't think it was like a Mustang or a Firebird or something like that. It was a cool sports car, and I thought it was cool looking. So one day when I was over there playing with him, I stuffed it in my pocket, took it home, not thinking twice about it. Just hey, cool, new toy. And I remember playing with it, and what I didn't see was his side of things, where he couldn't find his car, his favorite car. Mommy, where's my car? I can't find my car. Help me find it. And crying his eyes out several nights in a row and feeling like so sad. And I could feel that sadness seep into me, like it was mine. Like it wasn't just, I wasn't just, oh, I'm so sorry you're sad. It was more like, oh my God, this hurts so much. And I realized right in that instant what I'd done just by taking a car with, I didn't think twice about what it had done to him was so much worse. And I remember when I came back and got out of my coma and was fully back, the first thing I wanted to do was get that car and bring it back to him, and I did. And he, just cried and he hugged me, and his parents thanked me for bringing it back. There was no punishment or anything like that. It was just he was so glad to have it back. He didn't care, and it made me realize that even the smallest things that we don't think twice about can have a very profound effect on other people.
And
And
what a beautiful lesson for
oh, it is.
a 7-year old to learn at the
Yeah,
beginning
and
of
that
their life.
yeah, and that set me like I will tell you this, I have never stolen another thing in my entire life since then. Not once.
Well,
Because
he
I know how that feels
remembered.
now.
So
Um,
I've always wanted to ask
sure.
somebody who has had a near death experience. When you go through your life review, I hear a lot about how you have to experience empathy to the nth
Yes.
degree. But
Oh
my
yeah.
but my question is, do you also get to experience the positive side of things, how you maybe helped somebody become enlightened or
Oh
help
yeah.
them feel better about their life or whatever positive energy you put in their life for that brief moment. You're able to
You
see
get to
that as well?
experience everything, all the good, the bad, every bit of it. And I'll use this quick example. Let's say this is some of these actually done for me, and I've done for other people since then. Let's say you see somebody in the grocery store who can't afford the groceries that they need, and you just buy, you have the money extra that week, and you help them out by buying your groceries. Now, for you, that's the end of it. They thank you, and you feel great about it for a few minutes or a few hours. Maybe you tell somebody about it, but that's the end of it for you. But let's say maybe that person had to choose that month between buying groceries or paying their rent. And now they don't have to make that choice anymore. So now, by being able to pay their rent, they don't get evicted. Them not getting evicted, their kids have a safe place to live and can do better in school. Maybe they use it as a teaching moment. Teach your kids, this is why you should do kind things for other people, and they become better people because of it. They help other people when they grow up. Those people help other people, and so there's this whole chain of events that come out of this one thing that for you meant little, meant next to nothing, was temporary, but it can have an effect on dozens or even hundreds of people down the line from you that you will never see except in a life review. And I experienced that in my second one, especially, both positive, but especially the negative. And the reason, and that was my teaching moment. And I'll get to that at some point later on when we talk about it. But it it's a it shows you how connected all of us really are.
Sure.
Because, like I said, one thing that you do for one person doesn't just affect that one person in that particular moment. It affects hundreds of people in multiple different ways.
Like the domino
And
theory.
yeah, and it could be positive or negative. So if you harm somebody, that has the same effect, but in the opposite way. Down the line, like if you didn't buy their groceries, maybe they had to make that choice. Maybe they get evicted. Their kids don't have a safe place to live. They don't do well in school. They don't get that teaching moment. All that stuff doesn't happen. So all of a sudden, their lives are 100 times worse, and they don't get to do the thing. And the people that they would have affected don't get that benefit either. So just by doing or not doing one small act of kindness, you can affect so many lives in a negative way or a positive way. And that's the biggest teaching thing I try to bring back from life reviews,
Mm-hmm.
because you get to see that firsthand. And that has stuck with, I think my life reviews, especially in my second one, stuck with me probably more than anything else that I experienced or learned on the other side. And it's the one thing I try to teach other people because we we so many times we think of just ourselves. We don't think that we're connected. We think of ourselves as separated
Right.
individuals
Right.
rather than connected beings. And we don't realize that what we do affects so many other people.
Hmm.
So, that's one thing I wish everybody could learn or see for themselves just once. See one good act that you do affect so many other people. You want like I can't stop doing it now. Like I want to do it every time I get a chance. I've lost count of the number of people I bought groceries for or or done things for. Because somebody did it for me when I was in a rut where I couldn't afford groceries one month, and um I was struggling. I was gonna have to put stuff back, and I was embarrassed. And this woman just came out of the blue and put her credit card in and slid it through and said, "Buy whatever you need."
See,
And
so
I cried.
that way on this earth, you're able to experience both sides.
Exactly.
So,
Like I've done harm and I've done good, both in this life and in others, and I've experienced the down the line effects of both of them.
so this was part of your life purpose. Obviously, that life review taught you of about how you should feel love and how you should spread love and care amongst human beings. Was there
And to help
another
people.
to help people?
Yeah.
Was there another life purpose that you came back with that they shared with you?
Yes. And this, I will say it came more out of my second one than my first one. The first one was more of a, okay, this is what a near-death experience is like, and here's, here you get to explore the other side. It's kind of cool. But more of what I was taught in that one was more of a personal nature, where I was given like a timeline of events that were going to happen in my life.
Mhm.
Um, the bullying that I would experience over the next 9 years after I came back from that first one. Abuse from my mother, abuse from my brother, um, things like that. All the events that were going to happen to me, all the injuries, the results of those injuries, everything that I've experienced ever since. So, but I was given that not just because like, oh, okay, here, you get to tell people, hey, I knew this was going to happen. It's more to show you what you saw was real, and you get to say, okay, I can confirm this, and this because these all happened in the order I was given. So obviously, they had to come from somewhere else. It didn't
Right.
come from me. It wasn't my imagination. It wasn't, me making it up. It came from someone who knew what was going to happen beforehand. And so, but yeah, the second one, I definitely got that. Sorry, uh,
So,
remind me what you asked him.
so we were talking about life purpose. So
Oh,
was
life purpose. Gotcha. Yeah, the other life purpose I came back with, I specifically asked to come back with all of the knowledge and information that I learned on the other side. And I was given this ability to organize and to see patterns, which, a lot of people come back with, like, maybe a telepathic ability or ability to be a medium or a channel or things like that. My interest was never in that realm. It was always more to help people understand things. I was like, people have told me multiple times I should have been a teacher or a psychologist because I'm good at explaining things to people where it makes sense. And I'm good, like, I use analogies on a constant basis where I can put things in a context someone else can understand, even if they've never experienced what I saw.
a lot of the great
And
masters through our history did that, and I know that
yeah,
Jesus when they try to translate as best they can his stories, they understand that he was using analogies that the people of that time could understand.
Yeah, his parables were just analogies in a different form.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's a way to make people relate to something. But like I said, I was given this not only that information, but also, like I said, the ability to organize it, to see patterns where I could put the pieces together. And in fact, that's one thing my guide has been helping me. I said he's been helping me this past year. That's what he's been helping me do is put the pieces together on things. And I've come across probably 60 or 70 different things that have just all of a sudden fallen into place in this past year or so. And it's stuff that like science is just starting to reveal it with like data that just came out this year, and the like what's going to happen to the universe, for instance, is something they've had a couple of competing theories for decades,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just finding out from a new project that just started this year that these theories are probably wrong, and what they're proposing is exactly what I was shown 40 years ago in a near-death experience.
Wow. Wow.
So things like that. But yeah, I was given that ability to see them, and I see patterns in everything, and not just with these ideas, but also in nature. Like I see like how the universe is kind of organized, how things are connected to each other. I see connections. That's
Mm,
like more than even patterns. I see connections
mm,
from not how everything's connected to me, how I'm connected to other people, to
sure.
animals, to small children, how I'm connected to the world, to the universe. And I experience that on a daily basis. And I think more than anything, that has helped me make it through the harder times when I've been at my lowest because I can close my eyes and I can see what I experienced and remember what I went through on the other side and how beautiful and amazing it was.
Mm.
And and the one thing about it is like some people say, well, you maybe just made it up in your head. I lost because of multiple head injuries. I lost almost all the memory that I have below the age of 16. It's almost a complete blank, except for the certain traumas that I remember parts of. But the only complete memories in every single detail are my two near-death experiences, both of which happened before I was 16.
Wow.
I remember every tiny detail of both of them. So how could I lose all my memory below the age of 16, barely remember pieces of what little I did retain, and only have two complete memories in every detail? That's, I
That's
mean, that
incredible.
alone is like, okay, try and explain that one,
Right.
you
So,
know?
so at this point, then you've had your life review. Did your guide explain to you it was time for you to go back to your body, or what happened after that?
Not yet. Yeah, it was after that. After a life review, both times I found myself in that little pocket universe I was telling you about. The
Hmm.
one that resembles the area in Switzerland where I lived 3 lifetimes ago, which is they call the Zermatt region. It's where the Matterhorn is, if you're familiar with that
Sure.
mountain.
Hmm.
So I found myself in this, like in a field of wildflowers of all, like every color of the rainbow. And what I
Mm,
realized
nice.
when I saw this was colors there have sounds.
Mm,
They have a frequency to them. Each one has its own frequency. And so together, when you have a bunch of different colors, it creates this heavenly chorus that is
mm.
unmatched by any sounds on earth. I finally found something just, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, somebody posted a video of a woman named, I think her name is Melan or something like that. And she does this thing where she mixes singing bowl sound, uh, background music, and her vocals, where she does like and mm,
I think I've
and
seen her. Yeah, it's beautiful.
the one they sent me, and there's some other ones I've seen on YouTube of her, but the one that they posted that I saved a link to was exactly exactly like I remember it being in that field of flowers. The same exact sound, and I'd never heard it before. I've heard pieces of it, but never that exact combination until that video. So that I was amazed by that. But yeah. So I found myself in this place, and then I was told I could go explore, basically look around, see what you want to see. And at the time, I had never been. I'd only been outside my hometown once. My family took me to New York City for the bicentennial in 1976. So that was my first experience with buildings taller than 3 stories. And like they took me up in the World Trade Center, which was then I think only 3 years old. Um, the original World Trade Center, not the one that's out now.
Right, right.
But like I remember saying, like 1,000, it's not more than 1,000 feet in the air, with my head against the window, looking down at the traffic and looking at these little tiny cars going down the street that look like they're the size of an ant.
Hmm.
You know. But anyway, other than that one time, I had never been outside my hometown, and so I kind of stayed close to home, even in this near-death experience, where I explored the solar system, but I didn't really go beyond that. Um, I did go beyond that in the second one, but that's for later. Uh, but yeah, I saw all the planets, the moons, the asteroid belt, the sun, and I was able to go anywhere I wanted. Like I wasn't not affected by heat or cold or gravity. Like nothing could affect me in this form that I was in. Um, and I could either I remember I was a big comic book fan as a kid, and it still was even as a younger adult. And so there's some things where I just wanted to fly around like Superman, just kind
Yeah.
of like dive in and out of stuff. And it was the most amazing experience. Like I still like it's one of my favorite memories from being on the other side is being able to fly through stuff. Like my second one, I flew through some nebulas and stuff like that. I mean, the size of them when you're there is it's like it's different seeing a picture on a computer screen versus like you're this little tiny dot, and this thing is the size is like 100 times the size of our solar system in every direction, and it's full of light and structures and gases and stuff like that. And it's just amazing to see up close and personal. So that really kind of created my obsession with space and astronomy that was furthered by like the Cosmos series with Carl Sagan came out in 1978 or 1979 when I was like 8 years old. Um, and my science class in seventh grade actually went to Cornell University in New York where he taught. So I got to meet him in
Wow.
person, which for me was like, for other people meeting their favorite rock idol or their favorite actor, for
Sure.
me it was like I always loved science. So for me, scientists were my gods in that way.
So you were in awe of him,
Not
I'm
not not
sure.
like not like a real god, just like the
Right.
people that I admired the most, the people that I respected the most were scientists. So but yeah, so I got to explore the solar system, and then I remember when I was way out, all as far out as you can possibly go and still be in the solar system. I could feel my grandmother's voice
You could
inside my head.
you could feel it.
Yeah, like I could feel it. Like I could sense her thinking, I hope he's okay. I hope he doesn't die. And as soon as I felt that voice in my head, instantly I was right next to her in the hallway, looking through the same little rectangular window in the door at them working on me in the bed. And at this point, with all the exploring that I'd done, I had the equivalent of a year's worth of experience on the other side. And that, believe me when I say, that's nothing compared to the second one. I had a decade in the second one. So if you can try to imagine having a year's worth of experience, but coming back and realizing that no time has passed, or almost no time has passed. Like I was only dead for 6.5 minutes on this side, but on the other side, time is very, very different. And
I
I
guess
got to,
to a certain extent, excuse me, to a certain
sure,
extent, I would think that that sort of validated for you that there really is no time, and certainly in the way that we know it here on Earth.
right. Yeah, like the way it describes like we experience time linearly here, where if you can imagine like a long, infinitely long piece of string, where to your left is the past, to your right is the future, where you're standing is the present. So you have to walk along that string. You have to pass through the past, the present to get to the future. That's how we experience time. It's also how we experience space. That's why we often link the two together, space time. Like you have to, if you want to get from here to the next room, you have to start here where you were, go through the space in between, and wherever you happen to be is where you are, and then where you will be. So it's the same as past, present, future, and time. And but on the other side, if you can imagine taking that string, crumpling it up into a big ball, where every single point on it touches every other, and they're all connected directly to you.
Wow.
You can access any point in space or time instantaneously. If I want to be on Jupiter, I'm there as soon as I think it. If I want to be on the other side of the universe, instantly I'm there. There's no passage of time, no distance crossed. It's instantaneous. And so, like, everything there's instantaneous. That's why we have to come here to learn stuff and do stuff to grow, because there everything is easy. Everything's instant. Everything is easy. You don't have to make any effort to communicate telepathically or to creating something. You just think about it and it exists. If you want to be somewhere, you just think about it. You're there. There's no effort involved. So if you want to, you know, we develop and advance and evolve. Like any biologist will tell you this, evolutionary biologist, we evolve by pitting ourselves against adversity. And so there's no adversity on the other side, none. There's no disease, there's no injury, there's no pain, no suffering, nothing like that. So that's why we have to keep coming back here lifetime after lifetime to experience all the different variations of life that there is in the universe. And that's how we evolve as a being. We go to the other side to process what we learned, but then we come back again. So it's a constant cycle. That's why I say that's why anyone who's had a near death experience, one thing they're going to tell you is two things. Well, two things they'll tell you. One, none of them want to come back. And two, when we do, none of us are afraid of death ever again. None of us. Not even the ones who had a slightly bad experience. Because even the worst experience on the other side is better than the best one on this side.
Did you have a sense, even at 7, and you were there, and I understand at that point, age probably didn't matter because, again, age is linear in terms of how we think
Yeah.
it. But did you have a sense, Andrew, that you we often end up going not just back to Earth, but we'll go to other planets as well, other maybe solar systems, even other
Hmm.
universes?
Yep. I know for a fact, and like I said, a lot of this I learned in the second one more so than the first. Um, but I know for a fact that the reason I saw only those three Earth-based lifetimes is because that's the only three I've had before this one. Before that, I was on at least three other planets in this galaxy that I know of, and I've been other places too. In fact, I even know where two of the three planets are.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and I know where the basic region of the galaxy where my guide's planet is, where his species moved to. Because I mentioned that they came from a planet where they grew really tall. Well, they had to move because, in fact, the two species that I encountered, his and another one that I encountered during my exploration of the galaxy in my second near-death experience, both of them had to leave where they originated because one of them was because their star went supernova, and obviously they knew that was coming for millions of years. And the other one had what's called a GRB, or a gamma ray burst, and those are created by the formation of a black hole when a star of larger mass implodes, and gravity is so strong that it can't escape its own collapse, and so it creates these jets of gamma rays, which are very, very deadly. Like if you're caught directly in the path of a gamma ray burst, nothing survives. And so it stripped the atmosphere off of their planet and destroyed their magnetic field, their protective field that keeps the solar winds from wiping out what's left. And unfortunately, the one with the gamma ray burst was my guide species. The other one with the supernova, they didn't have the they had the ability to get most of their species off planet, but not all of them. So unfortunately, they lost some of their people when the star exploded. But both of one of that one species became a spacefaring species. They decided they wanted to keep exploring, especially because they had multiple generations born on this huge ship that they were on, which was like a conglomeration of smaller ships. Like you imagine a bunch of pieces being put together like a puzzle. My guide species, they settled in a system with 400 planets, three of which were habitable, and uh, the all three planets were they were able to. It was like slightly different gravity than where they came from, but it was livable, and they were able to adapt, and so they've been there for millions of years at this point. So this like their star got or their planet got wiped out, long before humanity was even a twinkle in God's eye. Well, the dinosaurs were still roaming around is when they moved.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, but anyway, so like I said, I know where two of the three planets I lived on are. The third one, I don't think I'm allowed to know where it is yet, and the reason because it's viewable from Earth. It's very close. Well, I mean, not very close. It's relatively close by as far as galactic terms go. It's only like a couple dozen light years away. But I was not allowed to see exactly where it was, and I think that's because they like when you're living in a specific lifetime, you're the idea is to leave the other side on the other side. That's why we forget everything when we come when we incarnate into a body. We Because remembering all these other lifetimes and everything that we did in them, especially if they were, better lifetimes than the one we're currently living, it's a burden for us, a burden that
Mm-hmm.
we are not capable of carrying,
Yeah,
especially in this lower evolution that we're in now
that's
as a
difficult.
human.
Be very difficult. I mean, in my hypnosis sessions, a lot of times people are curious prior to the session as to, why the mind wipe? Why does the remembering go away when we're
Yeah,
on Earth? And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that our little small puny brains could not even begin to imagine the vastness of
yeah.
of our existence. A and B, um, like you have described the other side as being so beautiful and so wonderful, and that people who have near death experiences don't want to come back, it would be very difficult for us. We'd all be wanting to go back.
I'll put it this way: there's three groups that have the highest rate of suicidality, like where they have suicidal thoughts. One is soldiers returning from war. Second is people with severe or chronic conditions or diseases. And third is near death experiencers. That's not a coincidence. And I've actually experienced two of those three. Not the wartime thing. I've never been a soldier, but I have severe chronic issues I've had my entire life. Most of them because of the bullying and stuff that I went through as a kid. Some because of my last job, but either way, um, I've experienced pain and suffering my entire life, every single day, without exception. So, I know what it's like to be suicidal on a constant basis. I went through a 2.5 year period, in fact, not that long ago, where I was bedridden for that entire 2.5 year period.
Oh
Could not get
no.
out of bed,
Oh no.
and it wasn't until I found a new combination of medications with my doctor that allowed me to reclaim part of my life. Like I've actually gotten to the point now where I'm at 75% of my normal versus 0%, which is where I was back in from let's say mid 2020 till about the end of August 2022. So that's when I was bedridden. But anyway, so
So getting back
um,
to where you were at the point where you were able to explore a little bit parts
yeah,
of our solar system.
right.
And
And
then
I
what
got called back by my grandmother.
okay, yeah, that's right, your grandmother. Okay. And so
Yeah,
so you're standing next to her and what's happening
right.
next then?
And at this point, and back to I can hear my guide's voice, but I can't see him again because, like I said, once once you cross that veil between this side and the other side, that's you can see them on the other side, but you can't see them on this side. Or if you can, you have to be like Barbara Gale, the woman I mentioned, who is a medium. You have to have the sight beyond
The the
the normal, beyond
the
our normal sight.
clairvoyance, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you have to be able to see with different eyes, and I don't
Hmm.
have that ability.
Hmm.
Um, so I can hear his voice, and he said, "It's time for you to return to your body." And I said, "Do I have to? I really want to stay where you are. It's so beautiful and wonderful there. It's so much fun." And I said, "Do I have to go back?" And he said, "There are things you need to do, and things that you came here to do." And so unfortunately, you cannot stay here. You have to go back. And I remember I was thinking like I really didn't want to go back, but I wasn't as despondent as I became later. Once I was like when I when he said that, I immediately was back in my body. Like they brought me back right that second. And when I came back at first, everything hurt.
Mm.
Light hurt, sound hurt, people's voices sounded like I describe it like Charlie Brown's teacher from the old cartoons, like wah 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 wah. Like I couldn't make sense of anything. It was like this cacophony of sound that was painful, and everything hurt. My body hurt. I felt like curling up in a fetal position and just dying. Like I felt like I was dying over and over and over again every single second.
Mm.
And um, but I was thankfully, I wasn't fully conscious. I was still in a coma. Um, in fact, I would be in a coma for another 7 days after I came back from my near-death experience. So I was in there for a total of 12 days in a coma. And even when I came back from that, um, I, I mean, immediately as soon as I woke up, I knew what I was missing. I knew what I'd left. I knew what I'd seen and felt and experienced.
Can I ask you a
And
quick question?
sure,
So, how were you able to tell how long you had been on the other side
just how much, I mean, like, um,
in
the,
earthly terms?
yeah, because as an example, just getting acclimated felt like it took a couple of hours, and I was only dead for 6.5 minutes. So how does that jibe? You know what I'm saying? Like I remember I was having a question and answer session with my guide that went on for what felt to me like a couple of hours. The life review took at least an hour, maybe two. My exploration of the solar system was months. I mean, I literally saw every planet and moon in the solar system, from Mercury to Pluto, and explored it in depth. I got to, dive into the clouds of Jupiter and Saturn, fly through the rings of Saturn. Um, I saw the ring that was around Uranus and Neptune. I saw that big white heart that they found when they went New Horizons went by Pluto that no one had seen
Wow.
until then. I saw that. I actually sat in that. So
That's so
because I did
incredible.
it, I spent months doing this. Just going around and seeing all the sights. It was like going on the best vacation ever.
And yet all of
And
this only took about six minutes, you said, something like
yeah,
that
six and a
on
half minutes. I was
in
dead.
terms of
Like
Earth time. Wow.
right, but 6.5 minutes. Like, and that's the thing. The second time around, 7.5 minutes, I was dead, and I experienced a decade worth of time on the other side. And the reason I knew it was this long was because of how long things take. If you're thinking, okay, getting from point A to point B, oh, I'm circling this, I'm doing that, and I'm talking to these beings for what feels like several hours or days. Um, going around the solar system and seeing every planet and moon up close, and actually standing on some of them and playing around. The amount of time that it would take you if you were in a body to do these things
Oh,
is not something you could do in 6.5 minutes ever. On your best day, you couldn't do it in 6.5 minutes. Any of it. And that you combine it all, it's even worse.
so once
So,
you ultimately got well, then,
mhm.
and you were able to be released and home, how, because you're still only 7 years old, how did this near death experience affect you as a child up until you had the second one when you were 16?
14. Yeah,
14,
it's
14. So what happened
yeah.
between the age of 7 and the age of 14? How were you able to process this near
Y-
death experience? Because 7 is pretty young.
Yeah, it is. And I I felt like I had a handle on things when I was on the other side, even at 7, once I acclimated and realized how things worked. But when I came back, I was limited again. And my understanding was limited. My brain was limited. I couldn't process things. And like I said, I knew, everybody I knew was denying what I experienced. So
It's
I was trying to deal with this on my own as a 7-year old. And I was like, remember I said I came back, I was not as despondent as I became. That's
mhm,
what I mean. I was like I wanted to be back on the other side so badly that I was actively thinking of ways I could get back there for months. It took me a month just to relearn how to be a human being again. Like the second time, it took me 4 months. I had to relearn how to speak. I had to relearn how to eat, drink, talk. I mean, everything that you normally do and don't think twice about. I was used to telepathic communication. I was used to instantaneous movement. I
mhm.
was used to, thinking things and people would answer me. It took me a week to figure out why I was asking questions and nobody was answering me. It's because I wasn't vocalizing them. I was
Not to
thinking them.
not to mention the fact that you felt so loved and safe over there, like you really
Oh God.
belonged.
Like the I will say this, when people say the words unconditional love, most times they have no concept of what those words mean. They because they will say unconditional love and then they immediately start putting conditions on it, which is it's ironic
That's
because
the
like
human
that's the opposite
way.
of what it means. Yeah, it's like we do the exact opposite of what we're saying
Hmm.
we're doing, and it's one thing that's always made me shake my head. Still shaking my head now. But yeah, the idea that unconditional love on the other side, especially well, with all beings, but especially with the one that you can call it God, I call it source, whatever you choose to call that being, it doesn't matter because the name doesn't define it. The name doesn't put it in a box.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's whatever you feel like calling it.
Hmm.
You can call it Petunia for all it matters.
Hmm.
But so anyway, when I experienced that being, and that being was around me everywhere and in everything that I did, I felt the presence of it next to me, in me, around me, in everything that I did. And like even in the I think I think I sent you the picture of like the Astor sun in Switzerland, or if I haven't,
Mm-hmm.
I will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it was like that's how it looked
incredible. It's
to
just
me, where
incredible.
it was like shining down on me, and I could feel it in the core of my being.
Wow.
That love would just permeate everything, and everything would respond. So it was just direct back and forth connection between this being and everything in creation, constantly. Where he or it or whatever you want to refer to it as, is constantly sending love to everything in the universe, and everything is sending that love back to it. So it's this constant back and forth, and it's like they build off each other. And the feeling of that, when you're able to feel it firsthand, and you're experiencing that back and forth firsthand, it's the most amazing feeling I've ever felt. I
Mm,
cannot I cannot even put it into words. I've tried.
mm,
Um, like you want to bask in it. You want to just it
mm,
feels so freaking good, and you just want to stay here forever and never leave it. And so, like, the only thing that sustained me when I came back was I would just sometimes just have to close my eyes and just remember how that felt. Like, actually bring it to my mind, and say, like, how did that love feel? Because I don't feel that love here. Even from my family, from the people who are supposed to love me, I don't feel it like I felt it there. And so it was very difficult to process. And having the second one really helped, because at that point I was I knew what I'd seen and done. I'd already had a lot of things happen to me that I was told were going to happen. So I knew it was real. There was no doubt in my mind. And I was always a very strong-willed person. I still am, where you're not going to bully me into thinking something that I know is not real. And so I knew that it was real. I knew it was a very true experience. And that so when I got to the second one, I didn't need any acclimation time at all. I knew exactly where, as soon as I was dead, I knew I was dead. And I was dead before I hit the floor the second time, where it wasn't like a transition where I slowly died. I was dead instantly. I knew I was dead. Went, yep, let's go to the other side. I'm ready to go. Didn't need any acclimation time. Went straight into the life review. Um, and so it was more, okay, I've done this before. I've been there, done that. So um, I was able to experience it and to feel it and let it in more the second time around than I was the first. The first time was more, what's going on? What is this like? How does this work? And I was figuring things out.
mm-hmm.
Like you go to a place for the first time. You're gonna learn, like, where's this? How do you get to that place? How does this work? And but yeah, those 7 years in between, I was bullied. Started 3 months after I came back, and as soon as I got into first grade, I mean, it started almost immediately and continued every school day through till we moved to North Carolina when I was 16 or almost 16. Um, and I had by the time of my second one, in fact, the second one was caused by one of the many brain injuries that I suffered. Um, it was the 14th out of 15 that I got from that. I had a spine injury. I had multiple broken bones, bloodied parts, stab wound. I went through the whole ringer with bullying. Um,
So Andrew,
and like I said,
I'm gonna stop you
sure,
there. And so what I would love for you to do is come back for a part two.
absolutely, love to.
If you would be willing to do that, because I am fascinated by your story. I'm hanging on every word. Every time you talk about the amount of love that's there and that you felt and how you were basking in the light of source, it brought tears to my eyes. I mean, it's just incredible stuff.
Has the
So
same effect on me even now.
Well, I could tell when you were actually speaking. I could tell a couple times towards the end you were getting pretty emotional. Um, so I first of all, I just again want to thank you so much for coming and being willing to share this because it means so much to so many of us who are trying to remember and really believe that this is a thing, that near death experiences are happening because it's another way of teaching those of us who haven't had one no longer fear death.
Yeah,
So thank you again, Andrew. And gosh, I can't talk for some reason because I'm so
that's
emotional
okay.
about what we just, oh my gosh.
Like I
Uh,
said, I'm still affected 40 years later by these things, so trust me, I
yeah,
understand.
I'm just kind of on a different, I'm just vibrating at a different level right now. So I'm trying to come back to earth, come back to earth. So um, I'll put the rest of your information in the description box. And I would like to also thank everybody who has tuned in to Souls on Tap. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and we would like to ask you that you share, like, and subscribe, and be sure and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss a drop of wisdom. We would love for you to share any thoughts you have about today's conversation and add any type of healing modalities you'd like us to showcase. Because remember, we are here for you. Also, if you know of anybody or you yourself have had a near death experience, we'd love to hear from you as well. So you can certainly get in touch with me either through the comments section or you can go to my website, which will also be available in the description box, and get in touch with me there if you'd like to share your story on the show. So thanks again to everyone, and Andrew, especially to you. And until next time, stay curious and stay connected, and we'll see you on Souls on Tap.
Thank you very much for having me, Julia. Julian, I appreciate it.
So much, my pleasure.